Well, and external. It's got USB ports. So I take a portable hard drive with me, I throw the SD card in there, hit a button, it transfers it all to the thing, and then I just take it out. And it also works wirelessly.
I put the random channel on. Oh, hey, it's live.
Oh, hey, look at that. I didn't see you there.
Yeah. Well, hello.
All right. So exactly. So Rob's just gonna fade us in here. And hello, makers of the world, coming to you live in spirit from I3 Detroit in the innovative Ferndale, Michigan. This is the Make Something Wonderful show, a podcast exploring all the fantastic ways we create. I'm Thomas Tusano.
And I'm Matt Carpenter. This evening, we are joined by Shawn Pearce, an awarded photographer working out of New England. Welcome, Shawn.
Hey, how's it going? It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome. Thank you for coming out. So, all right. So we'll start the show as we always do. Shawn, you're a photographer by trade. What do you enjoy most about what you do?
Oh, God. I don't know, the creativity aspect of it. I like to... It's kind of amazing when you have an idea in your head and you can just kind of sit there and like you pen something together, then you get a few people together. Since I do a lot of like portrait work, I'm always working with other people, makeup artists and stuff like that. You might have like an idea or concept in your head, and then you just being able to recreate it and show other people the vision you had is probably my biggest enjoyment out of it. Plus, I like editing and learning new techniques because you never stop learning with photography.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I would assume as well it takes a lot of like different creative muscles for things like composition and knowing your lighting and ISO and all these other different metrics and measurements as well, and how to kind of use those something so it's the word objective to capture something so subjective.
Yeah, it's definitely there's definitely a huge learning curve, just like anything else. But just being able to know how you want to light a subject, how to actually like how much power you should need, the settings in your camera. One thing you should always learn, like right off the bat, is what everything does and how it affects everything. Because it's kind of like if you take programming, for instance, and like bug fixes. So you change one thing, it's like a giant spider web. You pull on one string and the whole thing moves. So it's almost like that where having to fine tune everything, getting it together to be coherent takes a bit of work, and it takes a lot of learning and skill.
All right.
So, is there kind of one specialization within photography that you kind of focus on? I mean, you said something about like portrait work. Is that kind of what you'd say is your primary focus area?
Yeah, no. I have I'm kind of a jack of all trades sometimes when it comes to photography. I like doing everything, like anything from product shots to um, landscape and stuff. It all depends on my mood. I prefer and do more stuff with like portraits and boudoir work and horror is probably one of my favorites. And so I wouldn't say I specialize in one. I lean more towards the portrait work, but I have a love for all of it. It has to, like, landscape will be if I'm just feeling stressed out or I need to get out of the house and don't feel like dealing with people. I'll go out and capture the landscape. And being a big nature nut, I always have my camera with me anyway. But yeah, portrait's my primary, but I wouldn't say it's a complete specialization.
Do you find that there's a lot of things that you've picked up learning to work in some of the different categories that will take, like something from product shots that you've taken with you and has helped you kind of improve your landscape work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially like knowing when you know like the time of day and the way the sun's going to be, you can kind of act that as you setting up a light. So if I want like a certain type of shadow, if I want a very soft lighting and stuff like that, I can kind of think of it like if I was setting up setting up my light in a certain position, or being like having a light modifier where it's like soft or something like that. So it definitely has taught me and helped me out with certain things, and especially with like portrait work too. Is if I find a certain time of day where an area is absolutely gorgeous and the sun looks great, getting a model out there to work with me also helps out. To like it just makes a more compelling image instead of a static, flat image where the sun is at high noon and just everything is harsh and models, squinting her eyes. But even like but yeah, like I think combining all of them kind of helps me with every aspect of type of shooting that I do.
Some one more skill in the tool belt, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Can you can never have too many.
Yeah, not at
Precisely.
all. So, all right. So, is that I am up, Matt?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So Sean, why don't you tell, as far as photography goes, has there been any projects like as of late that you'd like to elaborate on and tell the people at home about?
Oh God, I have so many plans. Um, well, in the current climate, it's pretty difficult to get people together to do some of the work, but I have a lot of plans, like in the pipeline. Um, Mainly some horror stuff. Like I did a Silent Hill shoot a while back, and I'm planning on recreating that. And I've got I don't know, I've got so many. I've got a long list and a notebook filled with them, but it's kind of tough. Like I don't want to like reveal too many
Yeah.
because I want them to be kind of a surprise. Because some of them are actually pretty big and elaborate. Where I have an incredible makeup artist I've been working with named Crystal Carnage.
Mm-hmm.
She's she's my go-to for like anything makeup related, and her and I have a lot of plans in the pipeline.
All right. Awesome. So, yeah. Matt, would you like to take the next one?
Well, I think that kind of started to answer the question that I would have, which would be, is there kind of one thing that is kind of a huge goal that kind of keeps driving you forward in if I keep building up my skills in this particular category of photography or just photography in general, then maybe I can get to this particular thing. Like this is one giant thing that you want to be able to do.
I mean, ultimately, I think most people in any skill set would love to see it as a job, but not be a job. Kind of like one of the situation where if you love what you do, you're never working.
Yeah,
So I think ultimately, I mean, yeah, I'd love to make money, obviously, but I don't want it to ever be all about that. Like I want to do my creative stuff and have the actual financial stuff on the side. But I mean, ultimate goal is just become the best that I could possibly be. I like teaching people, and I don't know, just keep progressively moving forward with my creative work. And if I can make some money off of it every once in a while, I'd love to.
yeah, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, that's I think
Absolutely not.
something that we find a lot with people at i3s, and really I would imagine any kind of community of people that are creative types and makers is that people really enjoy teaching others how to do whatever it is that they're passionate about. And that's something that I think I really like about being part of these kinds of communities is the fact that people are interested and willing to do that kind of thing. I think that
Oh yeah.
speaks a lot to the people that are have the skills.
When you think about art in general, or like any skill in general, everyone's like, "Oh, be original." You can never be original nowadays. It's always been done. But if you can take it and make it yourself, you can put your own spin on something. It becomes original again. So if I can teach other people to do what I can do, first off, I just like helping people in general. But if I can teach people to do what I do, sometimes it gives me ideas when I see the different direction they take it in. It might spin me off into another direction to do something different. So it's it's kind of a win-win situation. I can't understand why anybody would not want to give that information out.
For sure. All right, Thomas, what do you got?
So one of the reasons that I started the show, as far as it goes, Sean, is there a lot of misconceptions about craft, trades, creative work that I'm more or less looking to dispel. And one of the biggest things that I thought of when going over all this is that, like, I can give people on the show a platform to dispel certain things that annoy them. Like last week we had Vanessa on, absolutely amazing guest and a ceramics artist, and I said to her, I bet people assume all the time that you reenact the scene from Ghost. And she goes, you're right on the money. So, and she went on a little bit of a rant, but then, the whole thing is what misconceptions do people have about photography or anything you personally do that you would like to clear up? So, but more focused on your profession. So, like, are there people that ask you for, free photography? Are there people who ask you, can you shoot my wedding? Like, what kind of stuff comes up in your field, in your profession, that like just drives you nuts, misconception wise?
How long do we have?
We have
All the time
like
in the world.
45 minutes. Like we got air time to fill, buddy. Go on.
All right, all right. So, so for sake of not going too crazy and upsetting some people, there are a lot of misconceptions. Everyone thinks that, I mean, just because you have okay, so we'll go to the very like basic of it. People think that just because you have a camera, you're a photographer without ever learning anything. So a lot of times you'll see people that don't have any idea what they're doing, have no professionalism at all, who are getting jobs because they're vocal.
And they have a
And,
camera.
yeah, and then someone's like, "Oh, I'll just do it myself now because so and so did a terrible job at so and so's wedding." The problem is you got to find people that know what you're doing, get into a conversation with them, meet them, talk to them, check out their work. One of the biggest misconceptions as well is that you have to have super expensive equipment to do anything. Like, granted, I have a $2,000 camera. I've got really expensive lenses. I've got really expensive lighting equipment. But give me a light bulb, a piece of paper, and a $200 DSLR, and I'm gonna get an image for you. You don't need expensive equipment. It helps you, of course. Like a better, you get a high quality axe, you're gonna chop down a tree much easier than buying something from Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
But it's still gonna get the job done in the end. And as far as like free shoots, God, I get that all the time. Like people want me to do weddings, people want me to do maternity photos, people wanting me to do like business portraits and stuff, and I'll quote them a low price compared to like what most photographers charge, and they'll be like, maybe I'll use my iPhone or maybe I'll use my. It's like, look, dude, you are paying for skill. You're not paying for just the quality of the camera. You're paying for skill. Someone that knows what they're doing. You can come to me after and be like, hey, I have a zit that you missed in post. Could you please clean it up for me? And I'll build it. You're losing customer service. You're losing skill by sitting there trying to do it with your cell phone.
Yeah, you're losing the know-how. Like, so you're able to do it in 10 minutes, but it took you 10 years to learn how to do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not charging you. I'm not asking for your firstborn.
Yeah.
I'm asking you, hey, give me a couple $100 and I'm gonna make sure you look your absolute best.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna be there any other time you need me. But
Yeah.
everyone thinks that it's just all I do is sit there and you just press a button. So it's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. Sometimes I make expressions during the questions. I don't know if you can see them, but oh, buddy, like just
Yeah.
I get it. Like I get it. I've had people like, "Can you build me a table?" And I quote them, or "Can you refinish X or Y or Z?" And I'm like, and I quote them, and then they're like, "Oh, I don't. Maybe I'll learn a YouTube video how to do this." And I'm like, "Okay, have fun." Not like like there's a joke, woodworkers are 9/10 of a people because they lose appendages, or 9/10 of a person because they tend to lose a pen. Like, you're making sure that you don't have a very expensive hospital bill, to in case you attempt it on your own. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong, because I was there too when I started learning it, started trying to go at this professionally. I'm still learning how to get my production speed up and my chops up to snuff, to make sure that I know what I'm doing, and everything looks good. But like, yeah, this is one of the reasons why I look at people and I go, we need to advocate for, and that there's an intelligence to the trades, and intelligence to the creativity, and like, people, when you look at professional for any hobby and for any creative type of talent, there's so much intelligence and discipline behind what they do. So yeah, you're preaching to the choir, but this is what I hoped you would do, because even if people start to hear it again and again from all different professions, maybe the repetition will get it through, that hey, we need to pay artists fairly. Hey, we need to treat creatives like they actually know what they're doing, instead of
It's a job. It's a
yeah.
you're gonna treat it like it's a job. It's a skill. It's like you're not gonna call a plumber to come fix your fix your sink or something like that and be like, oh well, it only costs you $2 in parts. Can you can you just charge me like four?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. And you get one of the other like situations when it comes to that too is like there's other hidden costs. Like it's not I'm not going to a place and taking a picture. I have equipment I have to pay for. I have to do upkeep on. If I'm doing a wedding or if I'm doing, anything like that, I need to have insurance. I need to make sure one of your guests don't get drunk and knock over my camera or spill stuff on my equipment. I have to, if I have a memory card failure, I have to pay people money to restore it. Then there's wear and tear on vehicle and everything else. And then that's not even counting the amount of time that I have to sit in front of my computer editing. A wedding can be a 40-hour week.
Yeah. And I can imagine, you just the memory card wipe, and you're not only paying people to restore that, but you're also making sure that you have coverage on those. Like, you have to go back through the Rolodex and make sure you know what shots you took, in case you have to retake them, as a guarantee that you have them in case they can't restore them.
Exactly.
Like there's and so yeah, I completely understand what you're getting into. Just and some people don't take this into consideration when they look at the amount of work. They just see, ooh, that shot. Like, we have a shot of cliffs up right now, either red desert or mountains. I see like trees and a sheer cliff face, and a shot of the bay. As far as it goes, like, people look at that and they see the beauty of it, and it's captured in a shot, yes, but setting up that opportunity for that shot, for everything to be just right, probably
Yep.
took a little bit of time, a lot of research, making sure your exposure rate, everything, all the variables came together just right to get that.
Oh yeah, like you need to figure out the time of day. You need to like there's so many things that go into it. You need the time of day. You need to have a perfect day. You need to make sure you're out there. Sometimes, like with landscape photos, sometimes you're waiting for that perfect shot. You're out there for 3, 4, 5 hours just sitting there,
Yeah.
and people are like, "All right, that's a pretty picture. Next, pretty picture. Next." And it's like you got to think about what goes into it. And sometimes our cameras cannot see the same thing that we see. Like the dynamic range isn't like close to what our eyes can see. So there's all kinds of techniques called there's techniques like HDR where you shoot one photo to get the shadows and you shoot one photo to get the base screen, you shoot another photo to get all the highlights, and then you have to process it and get it all in one image. There's a lot more involved than people think. I don't just walk in, say, hey, smile, click, boom. And then on top of that, you need to have some kind of a personality where, like, when you're doing portrait work, you need to have some kind of a personality where you can get somebody to loosen up and relax. So there's a lot of skills involved. You need to be a salesman. You need to be a technical person. You need to be personable, like personable or personable, whichever word it is.
Yeah. Tomato,
But
tomato. Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's not, and especially like a lot of artists like myself are very introverted. So for me to sit there and have a face-to-face conversation with someone, it's very difficult for me.
Yeah, that might be the most draining event of the week.
Oh, it's definitely the most draining event of the week.
Yeah.
So one kind of question that I have still on the misconceptions, well, kind of misconceptions. So you talked about kind of, the all the skills that you built up. So when you're like at a monument or something and someone hands you their iPhone and it's like, "Can you take a picture of us?" Do you feel like you're missing like appendages? Like there's so many fewer options that I have to play with here.
Oh man. All right, so here's the funny part. I use a high-end DSLR, well, a mirrorless camera, and a DSLR. I can calculate what I need for an aperture, a shutter speed, the ISO, and everything combined. Sometimes people will hand me their phones, which they do a lot, especially if I'm out with a camera. That's another misconception that I'm going to be their photographer apparently with their iPhone. But I'll be, I'll be out a lot, and someone will hand me their phone or they hand me their camera, and they'll laugh at me because I'm like, "How do I use this thing? It's supposed to be so simple," and I'm just like, "Wait, what's this button? Is this the shutter? Is this the shutter release? Like, what's this do?" And they're like, "Aren't you a professional?" But no, like even when I'm taking a picture with somebody's cell phone, like I'm sitting there trying. They usually end up with like 20 or 30 pictures because I'm getting different angles. I'm trying to make sure I'm not cutting anything off. I'm like, and I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm like, oh God. So they end up with like, 20, 30 extra pictures. And they're like, wow, these are really good.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I'm
with
always
high
paying
resolution
attention to that.
too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because apparently, you just hand me your stuff for, I'm gonna be your personal photographer for the day.
The
Here's my
carrying the camera around is the photography equivalent of always wearing a stethoscope and you're a doctor, right?
yeah, exactly. That's funny too, because I've watched YouTube videos of doctors that talk about that all the time. It's the same thing, man. Like someone knows you're a doctor, they're gonna ask you a bunch of questions. Someone knows you're a photographer. Hey, can you take my picture for this? Like, like really?
See, engineers don't have that problem. We just look like you
Oh,
don't want to talk to us, and then we don't have that problem.
yeah. I wish I could do that. I try sometimes, but when I'm
If you wear a
working with a
slide
model,
rule out, no one's gonna ask you to help them with anything.
oh God, yeah, I'm gonna have to start doing that.
See that's my trick out of the wood shop. I just go up to the dust barrel and I cover myself in sawdust, and no one wants to talk to me anymore. They don't ask me to do anything. It's just I just walk through the shop and it's like cloud, like Pigpen behind me, just and no one's bothering me because I'm covered and I look busy. I'm like, cool. It's like camouflage, like disappear. So
I'm just gonna like quit showering for like 2 weeks. So if somebody comes up, I'm just gonna hold my arm up.
oh no.
Here you go.
I've,
Are you sure you want me to take your pictures?
I've come into a member meeting before in a nice suit, and someone has looked at me and goes, "We're not allowing you in the wood shop tonight." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Why?" And they go, "Because you're dressed nicely and you always come out of there covered in sawdust. It'd be a shame to ruin that." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that make no, you're in the right,
I'm like, this is a photographic opportunity. Let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
yeah."
Before and
It's just gonna
after.
be one of those weird like stock photos where the guy's like in a full suit doing like digging a ditch.
He's in a full suit and he's got like goggles like photoshopped on.
Oh, geez. If you're in a full suit digging a ditch, there's probably chances you ran afoul of the mob. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
You're digging your own ditch.
yeah, yeah. Hey! You could pay a ditch digger, or you could do it yourself. Hey,
Either way, the end result is still the same.
yeah. That's the one. That's the one skilled profession. It doesn't matter.
I hope you bought a high quality shovel.
Yeah, exactly. How's the grip? Good, comfortable, good. Well, bam.
Exactly.
So,
Oh man.
All right, should we bring this back to the
yeah, go
actual
ahead.
question?
Yeah, to the actual, absolutely.
All right,
So
true story. I got interviewed for a second. True story. I
Yeah.
have gotten to the point where there was I was out in Newport, Rhode Island. I was taking some photo. I was doing some landscape photos and stuff like that. It's a tourist area,
Yeah.
so I ended up getting so many people coming up to me that it got to the point as soon as they started walking up to me, I just started coughing, just like hacking my lungs up, just like, oh, excuse me, what you need? And they're just like, oh no, never mind. That's a little pro tip for you.
Aller-
Pretend you're sick, you got a cold, whatever.
Allergic to tourists.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good defense.
Hmm.
So a couple times kind of throughout the discussion here, you've brought up the topic of sharing stuff on social media and kind of what the experience of that is like, and I think before the show we were talking about kind of uh reactions to your work, and especially when you're starting out, having kind of a thick skin about all that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of imposter syndrome?
Oh man. All right. So you have to have a thick skin because you're gonna get if you post your work on social media, they have all these crazy algorithms now that you might get seen, you might not get seen. I don't know if you've ever commented on went to go comment on someone's post on like Facebook, and it said, and you just happen to notice that it was from like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, it's kind of like that, where it's like you might not see it right away, or you'll see it and you'll just not have the interaction. We live in a society that's so based on how many people comment on our posts and how many likes we get, that it's kind of difficult as an artist or just anyone, like somebody wanting help, just posting something and nobody's interacting, and you kind of start feeling like you failed. Like you get into a situation of, hey, I just posted this picture and it got 3 or 4 likes, and you're really proud of that picture. You're really proud of the effort that went into it. You teamed up with people to like make that whole thing happen, and you get a couple likes, and then somebody who posts like a dumb meme that makes no sense next, like one scroll down has like 200 likes and a bunch of people commenting, or someone saying, hey, look, I bought a flower, and everybody's liking it, and you kind of get into that mindset of, you start getting depressed sometimes, or you start, even like against other photographers and stuff, you'll see something, they get a lot of likes, you really like the image too, and you start feeling like, wow, I'm terrible, I shouldn't even be a photographer, I shouldn't be working at this, I should just give up, I should just quit, which is something I deal with constantly. Because I mean, I've got depression that I've dealt with through most of my life, and I find ways to handle it, I find ways to like control it. But sometimes, like, I think in any craft, like, say you're a programmer, you ever program something that you just can't get right, and you're just like, why am I still programming, why am I still doing this? Like, I should just, I'm not learning and everything else. I think one of the best ways to handle that is just, you need to quit thinking what other people think and create things for yourself, and realize that you're going to make mistakes, you're going to constantly mess up, and as long as you're learning from it, you didn't fail.
Yeah, it's a natural part of expanding your skills, right? And that's one of like the kind of difficult things with like posting things to kind of social media, which in a lot of the creative fields, right, that is how you share your stuff, is that invariably you're going to want to compare yourself to other people, and the entire basis of those systems is to provide a mechanism in like number of likes and number of comments to seem like you're making that comparison, when really it's what is the least common denominator content, right? Like
Yeah.
talking about the cat photo outliking your like really well crafted landscape photo kind of situation.
Yeah, you got to realize too, like, you're not just going to have, you know, it's not like anybody's opinion of your work really matters all that much, but it's almost like you're going out with a bad hair day or something like that, and you're like, oh, everybody's going to see my messed up hair, and or I haven't showered in a couple days or whatever. And it's like, you're literally, you almost feel like you're putting yourself completely out there for everybody to judge you. And might just be something simple as something got more something got more views because it just happened to pop up on their timeline at the right time. So you gotta kind of like keep it in your head that it's not always you, and it's not always your work. It's just it can be timing, it can be the algorithm for everything.
The algorithm giveth and the algorithm taketh away.
Exactly. And then you get people that are you get this new thing that's been happening in the last year or so is a shadow ban. Like you don't post for a little while, or you use too many hashtags or repeated hashtags, and you become shadow banned where nobody sees it, or only people on your friends list. Like in the case of Instagram, only people on your friends list see it.
Yeah.
I started learning about that. So you gotta find ways if you want to get seen. You gotta find ways to bypass certain things.
Yeah.
With again, getting creative with like hashtags and everything else.
I want to circle back real quick to mental illness, because this is something that I've touched on personally in other places, and I normally use humor to address it. And I will kind of here, because this is ironic as hell. I am basically a woodworker with dyscalculia. Like, numbers absolutely scare the living hell out of me. And at I3, it's why I stay away from programming and logic based things, and instead I'm like more, hands on physical stuff. I like that
Yeah.
a lot more. Um, and I've had problems even just in woodworking, where like I have to make a measurement, or I have to figure out compensating for a joint, or how the pieces are going to all fit together. I I absolutely sometimes just like I don't hate woodworking. I hate the geometry of it. And
Oh
I just
yeah.
it just sucks. I would rather do almost sculpture work. You give me a power carver and stuff like that. But it comes down to it. Like, I pointed that out to people. I said, I have X, Y, and Z going against me. And if I always focused on X, Y, and Z and didn't actually do things with what I'm trying to do, then I would still be back at square one. It's not so much like you can absolutely be someone who has no business doing what you're doing naturally and still succeed at it. Like, there are a lot of people who look at people and just like, oh, you're so talented, or oh, this, that, or the other thing, or um, I know people have told me before at I3 they appreciate like the farmhouse style and the simplicity to my designs. And I've just been like, it's literally because I'm trying more to finish something than I am trying to overcomplicate it and like make it like I do super exorbitant builds, but I do them simple and I overbuild the living hell out of them, because I'm compensating for the fact that geometry isn't my strong suit. That math is something that sometimes escapes me. And I do need to change that thinking, and I'm getting better with measurements and numbers, and working around all that, and hoping that one day it isn't as big of an obstacle. But man, do I hate like just going through the initial measurements, and like I double and triple. There are people in the audience now who will go tell you like, yeah, I've seen him work in person, and he double and triple checks either everything or works off ratios. Like, I just know, okay, this is standard seating height, so I should use this, or I want to have this appearance of a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-4 or whatever else. And that's what I work with, kind of thing, instead of like trying to get everything super exacting. If you let all these finite details freeze you, you can always go back and correct for them. But if you let all the finite details freeze you and trip you up in the whole process, you'll never get past the feeling that if you don't finish anything, you'll never get past the feeling that you are an imposter or something. You're not. You're trying to see something from point A to point B, and get through it.
Yeah.
So I had to derail it because that's something I feel so strongly about.
Oh
Like, so.
no, that's perfect because you think about it too. Like you ever sit at home, you ever sit at home, and you want to do something, right? You have plans to get a bunch of stuff done, and you have so many things to get done that you just end up doing none of them at all because your
Yeah.
mind just gets overloaded with everything. It's like the technical details of with woodworking and trying to do all the equations to make sure everything fits together. Like it's a lot of work sometimes, and sometimes it's good to just step back for a second and just go right back to the basics. And sometimes simple is better. You can overcomplicate something so much that your brain starts overthinking it, and it definitely puts you in a state of like, wow, I'm terrible. What am I doing? I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. And then what you can do is you can take a step back, go back to the basics, kind of reteach yourself where you started and build up from there. And it gives you a little more breathing room to actually start learning the other stuff because you're not so focused on it. At least that's what I think anyway.
Yeah. And just so he speaks up and he's represented right now, our producer Rob just lets us know. He says hello analysis paralysis is what we have names for different maker phenomenon, unfinished projects and things like that. And there's
Nice.
that float around our shop all the time. That's one of them. Do we have any other maker like terms for feelings? Like what is I know German language has things like that. They make up a word for things. Do we have more like that?
You want like the i3 Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows?
Yeah, exactly. Like just like that feeling when your soldering iron shorts out on your last solder joint or like something like that. Like yeah, like there's gotta be different names for stuff like that. And if the audience wants to chip in, I'll read them off as kind of a gag reel.
If
So
nothing else, coming up with German ones would be very entertaining.
that would be German maker sorrows.
Man, it's kind of like right now where I've been getting into 3D printing as well to like take up some of my downtime and everything and just learn a new skill. And it's almost like for the first week I had my printer, I couldn't get any supplies.
Oh.
And it's just I have a nice, beautiful printer sitting there, and I'm like, I can't do anything with it. Oh God.
Yeah, I needed sandpaper for something, and I had the expectation that, oh yeah, I'll just Amazon, it'll be here in 2 days, and then I get an email, your sandpaper will arrive May 8th. What?
Right?
So people bought out all the toilet paper, and now they're working their way down to the least comfortable things to use.
Oh yeah. So get this one. Here's one for you. One thing you need for resin print. A few things you need for resin printing. You need paint if you're gonna paint them, which is very hard to come by now because everybody's home doing crafts.
Yeah.
You need neutral gloves, and that's pretty much impossible to get.
Yep.
And you need respirator masks. Oh, and alcohol. I was like, wow, I picked the worst time to actually pick up this kind of skill.
But it up like
Yeah. I ended up getting them,
once
but it
it's
took
all
forever.
over, the production of those things is going to be through the roof, so you'll be able to.
Oh
go
yeah,
all over the
absolutely.
place.
I'm gonna be like all pent up, like ah. I ended up getting stuff, but it was not easy.
Yeah.
And I replaced the alcohol with simple green.
Huh. Okay, I was about to say I just replaced the alcohol with bourbon. I'm like, there you go.
Well, great.
Yeah.
Simple green, yeah, exactly. Well, hey, a buddy of mine is smart, and I almost don't want to reveal this, but a buddy of mine is smart. He couldn't find alcohol to like make sanitizing like pads and stuff, so he went to the liquor store, but grain alcohol.
Yeah.
Pro tip.
Yeah, right.
So, hey, someone wants Everclear for something. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
exactly.
It has a use. So, all right.
It's got the perfect amount of alcohol in it.
Yeah, too much.
The perfect amount for disinfecting things, at least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
or cleaning resin prints.
Yeah,
I
there
think
you go.
someone made the joke that alcohol's for disinfecting your insides.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway,
a little bit for my resin print, a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Go shot for shot with your printer. Who wins? Answer: nobody, because you're puking into the trash bin and the print resolution is shot to hell.
Can you print with vomit?
Oh no! Oh.
That's how you know you're getting desperate and can't get supplies.
Yeah, no bueno.
So where did all my tequila go? Anyway, so, all right, let's keep moving.
So I guess there's really only one more question on like the main set, and then we have our bonus round questions. But
bonus round.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about kind of how it's the skills and not so much the expense of the equipment that really determines how good of a photographer you can be. But do you have suggestions for people that are just getting into photography, like equipment that they should try to use for learning on that might be easier, or is there like certain ways of learning the skills, classes, or online things that you would suggest that people look into?
Well, not really. You just hit a button as a photographer, remember? No, but really,
Hold the camera facing the right direction and hit the button.
yeah. Well, some people can't even do that, but yeah. So quit worrying about gear. Us as photographers have a bad habit of, gear acquisition. We always want the latest and greatest things, and I mean, I'm just as bad, but you can't rely on the gear all the time. Like, get yourself, if you're just getting started with photography, learn the basics of lighting. Like I said, use a light bulb with you know, put a white card on it, like a white piece of paper on it. You'll soften the light. You can light through a sheet. Get yourself a cheap camera. Don't worry about getting something used, especially just to start off with, and learn from there. And if you find out photography is not for everybody, and if you're going into photography with the goal of being a professional photographer and making a ton of money and living that dream, shooting out in LA and working with all the America's Next Top Model and stuff like that, don't pick up a camera. Don't bother. You can get to that point, but it is going to take a lot of work and a lot of learning to get to that point. If you're just starting out, get a cheap camera used and just learn the basics. Learn the lighting. Pick up a book. Look up some YouTube videos of people doing different lightings. That's the best advice that I could actually give anybody. And don't be afraid to reach out to other photographers, because I'm not the only photographer that likes helping people out. I've numerous times I have taken a brand new photographer out and taught them, how to use their camera. Ultimately, all you need to do is know how to use your camera, know the limitations. And then if you want to upgrade to make things easier for you or a bit higher quality later on, then you can start shopping around. Save some money.
Would you suggest that people invest in like different kinds of lenses when they start? So I know basically nothing about photography. All I know is that there are camera bodies and there are lenses, and that's kind of the main pieces that I know exist. Um, or is it kind of like get a used camera with whatever it comes with, and you'll learn to use that, and it might actually be beneficial?
Uh, as far as lenses are concerned, it depends what you want to do. If you want to specialize, I mean, if you want to be a macro photographer, you know, don't get a 600 millimeter zoom lens unless it has macro on it. But try to figure out what you want to do first before you dive into other things, like something you're mostly interested in. Get a lens that would suit that. As for a first lens, a kit lens like an 18 to 55 that most cameras come with, if you get like an actual kit, is going to do you fine for a while. If you want, get the kit that has two lenses. You got a 18 to 55, and then you get a 55 to 250 in some cases, where you got a bit of a wider angle where you can do some landscapes and you can do some like normal like cityscape shots. And then you have a zoom lens where you can do wildlife if you want to play around with that. Like, just don't worry too much about it until you get to where you want to be. Part of that overthinking thing. What was the second part of your question? Because I just went off on a tangent.
I I think that was basically it. It was because one of the things you had suggested was buy something used, and if you buy something used, you're going to end up with whatever the person who had it before you had on it. So that may actually be maybe educational because you're going to learn to use whatever they gave you because that's what you have.
Yeah, offer up and eBay your friends. Contact photographers you know that they might be selling some equipment pretty cheap.
Also, just a side note, Leanne is watching at home, and she said, "I learned on a manual."
Hey, that's the thing, man.
Yeah.
That's how you learn.
Yeah.
And a lot of photography too is you learn by doing. You don't necessarily. It's always good to go to school, right? You go to school and then you have people there hands on teaching you stuff like that. But don't feel it's necessary. don't feel like you have to spend thousands of dollars to go to school to like learn this stuff. A lot of the stuff you can do. There's a lot of skill involved, but it's a lot of trial. A lot of it's it's also trial and error. Like set up, first start shooting something like. Sorry, let me rephrase that because this is a photographer term. Start shooting people, But I'll rephrase that. When you start photographing different people, you you can experiment with lighting, especially do it with your sibling, your brother, your sister, your family, your friends, and play around with the different settings to learn what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the manual will tell you a lot of stuff that you. I mean, I've picked up a camera and knowing like how to use a camera for God going on 12 years now. You can pick up a manual and still learn more things that you didn't even know your camera could do, or settings your camera has. So it's learn in any way you can. Grab some books, watch YouTube, but above all, practice. Keep doing it.
Excellent advice for a lot of things, I'm sure. Thomas, it looks like we're coming around towards the end of our time here. Are there any kind of last minute questions that you want to pull out?
Um, I don't. I mean, we may have touched on this, but I'm not completely certain. Um, did we touch on your kind of some of your inspirations, Shawn, or did we like where you find it and the most, or
No,
anything like that? I mean, we may
no, we
have
didn't
brushed
touch on that.
over it. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
I sometimes find inspiration from other photographers, like movies and stuff. Like watch a movie and see some of the stuff that cinematographers do. It's some of it will blow your mind. Absolutely incredible, beautiful work. And cinematography and photography go hand in hand because it's literally you're composing a shot, getting the lighting right and stuff like that. I find inspiration from video games. Sometimes I'll be walking down the street and I'll see like a poster, or I'll see like even a graffiti art that just pops up. You can kind of find inspiration from anywhere. Obviously, since I do a lot of horror and stuff, especially my favorite Silent Hill, and I keep doing those shoots. I don't say I keep doing those shoots. I'm redoing it now that I have more skill, but like inspiration comes from anywhere. Sometimes it comes when you least expect it, which goes to one other point that I need to give.
Yeah.
If you are getting into photography, bring your camera with you everywhere. I cannot count how many times I've been driving down the street and I just saw that dream shot that I wanted to take, and all I had on me was my cell phone. Your cell phone's good, but it does not compare to a decent camera.
Yeah.
That's what they say, right? The best camera is the one you have on you.
Exactly. Like if that's all you have to get the shot, then by all means take the shot. But but bring your full camera with you. That's the best thing. Get a second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The car camera, the camera you carry around at home.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So, all right.
Cool. So I guess one thing that we talked about a little bit was that you've been kind of getting into 3D printing, and I had some just kind of a general question on how being a photographer and someone who uh, works in that medium. What have you found kind of the most interesting of this totally new medium? That I mean, I know you have depth in your photos, obviously, but this is a different kind of depth. I feel like that you now have to play with.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny when Thomas said X, Y, and Z. All I started thinking about was my slicer software. I was like, oh god, I'm
You've been
getting in that
converted.
mindset now. Yeah. So, I don't like. So that's a tough question because I'm still relatively new to it. And it's a whole new like learning experience for me. So I did a little bit of 3D modeling before. Um,
I could rephrase the question for what you're most excited about for this medium, then, if that would be easier.
yeah, I think that would be easier for me to answer. Would be what I'm most because I have a lot of excitement going into this. Uh, besides the fact that I'm learning a new skill, I never like to stop learning. I just love to absorb any kind of information I can get my hands around. But one of the biggest things I'm excited for with the 3D printing is the ability to print high quality props and basically something that I could just dream up, or even somebody else might have dreamed up. I'm able to just make it, and then I can customize it and make it my own. It kind of goes hand in hand with the photography as far as that's concerned. Is like, there are no original ideas. There are only ideas that people have done that you can make yourself. Like you can make your become your own. But yeah, I think that's my biggest excitement is the amount of like little gadgets that I could make to enhance my photography stuff, and just seeing another thing that you create just come to life is pretty incredible. Takes a while, but it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, if those photography shots you have to wait around a while to get the good ones, there's
It's
plenty
worth
of
it.
time to sit around and watch a 3D printer work.
Oh yeah. Plus I can set up my 3D printer and just set it to print and just go out and do the photos. So
There you
best
go.
of both worlds. Should be done by the time I get home. Now it's balancing. I have very limited time with my job, so now it's trying to balance all of it together. That's going to be the fun part.
Yeah. Good problems to have, though.
Yeah, absolutely. You can never have a big problem when you just don't have enough time to get all of your creative endeavors done.
Yes.
Unless you're on a deadline.
Yeah, well.
Then you're screwed.
Yeah.
So at least you're doing what you love.
Exactly. I'm definitely enjoying it. Every little hobby that I pick up, I enjoy. Between drones, photography, and now this.
Have you merged drones and photography? I know a few people that are like drone photography kind of people.
Oh yeah, I am dying to get an upgraded drone, but I've gotten some real. I ended up picking up a DJI Mavic Mini, and it's a relatively cheap while being still a premium drone. It's a 12 megapixel camera, and I've gotten some amazing shots with that. None that I've really posted on Instagram yet, but stuff I posted on my own personal Facebook page.
Yeah.
I'm definitely combining it though.
Yeah.
I wish I could combine drones and woodworking. Closest we get is CNC. Like
That
I
sounds
wish,
terrifying.
yeah, just like like putting a board into the table saw with the drone. What are you doing? It'll be
Oh,
fine.
I was thinking like a circular saw drone, which is more terrifying.
Oh god, yeah, like
Yeah.
a drone with like a motor and a saw blade on to.
I think that would be classified a munition and probably be illegal.
Yeah.
Who needs a ladder to reach that board? I'll just saw it with my drone.
Yeah, just put a like you're just trimming trees and you just put a Sawzall on a drone and so.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. Hey, you could always get high aerial shots of you working.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
You can utilize it.
I'm actually jealous of some of the guys like Frank Howarth is a guy that puts woodworking and photography together to great success. He does stop motion woodworking, which is absolutely
that's cool.
fantastic. Alex Steele is a blacksmith who has some great cinematography and production values. Normally his timing with music, or his editor's timing of music, I should say, is just so on point. And there's quite a few maker YouTubers out there. That leads me to a question I actually want to ask you to wrap up here, Shawn. So we, as far as it goes, me and Matt are part of something called a makerspace, and I don't know if you've ever heard of that or if there's
I've heard of it.
Oh, okay. So you've heard of the concept of like what we do and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Group of different people all together that do different things, working in unison in the same location.
He gets it. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
We've had our first guest, Carmel. Right, he was on. He was a playwright and a stage builder, and he was like, "Man, this is great!" And he's like looking around, like, "This is fantastic." And so, like, I always love getting guests who are kind of a little bit outside maker culture, to like comment on what they think. And lately, we've had all these makers type guests and who know of i3 Detroit, who are part of our organization. So always getting the perspective from the outside looking in is fantastic for us. But if you know the concept, then it's not. It kind of loses its polish or its shine a little bit. Oh, it's allure. So
I can always elaborate on it, on why I find it special.
I mean, if you want to
Please do.
tell us your
Yeah.
philosophy on makerspaces, absolutely. Like, please.
While I'm not part of a makerspace, I've worked in studios with other groups of people, hair, makeup, wardrobe, stuff like that. Like it's kind of the same concept where like you guys might not necessarily be working together, but you can kind of like pick each other's brains on certain things or like get each other's opinions and sometimes combine forces to do something. It's an amazing thing because A, you get to save a little bit of money by sharing a space, and B, you got people you can sit there and talk to who might inspire you. So you're always, and hey, you might even be like, well, this guy does woodworking and this guy does that. Well, I'd kind of like to learn woodworking. Hey, could you help me out? Or I'd kind of like to learn programming or whatever. Could you help me out? You have a built-in network of intelligent people that you can learn from. So it's kind of like a creative muscle. If you quit flexing your creative muscle or any muscle, like even physical muscles, eventually you lose strength.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a situation like that in a creative space like that, you're constantly wanting to create. You're constantly learning new things and you're constantly coming up with new ideas because you get a lot of like people to bounce it off of. And I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I ever go into I3 without having some kind of unusual, interesting conversation with people who are there. It's always an adventure. For
Oh
sure.
yeah, keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. So we are getting close to the end of the show, and so normally I do a spiel and let the people at home know, hey, thanks for tuning in this week, but we're not done just yet. I'm gonna take that for now. As I'll allow one final statement from you, but I just want to let people know. Um, the guests are Shawn's social media, his Facebook and his Instagram can be found in our video description. And if you'd like to keep up with my stuff, Thomas Tusano, also my Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, whatever the hell else you'd like to see is down there as well. Matt, why don't you also let the people know where else they can find us and how they can support i3?
Absolutely. So if you would like to know more about I3, you can find us on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you get your social media fix. Links are in the description. And if you'd like to support the space, i3detroit.org/donate is a short link. We always appreciate your support. And also on our website, you can find any information about how to get in touch with us if you'd like to come down and see the space or learn more.
Yeah. So I also want to remind people as we sign off here tonight that we do also partner with the Syn Shop located at 1075 American Pacific Drive, Suite C in lovely Henderson, Nevada. And linked below is their YouTube channel where you can tune in to continue the conversation on making and hacking with Krawciw and the Mighty Pong. With that, though we're not closing out the show tonight just yet, I want to remind everyone that in these difficult times, make something wonderful of your time, of your efforts, of your creativity, because there's so much you can do with all of that, and it's a much brighter world for having done so. And I also want to let people know if you've seen any of Shawn's work, please reach out to him if you've liked it. And as far as it goes, Shawn, about a year ago or so, a little more than a year ago, we teamed up, right? I still,
Yep.
if you like to make it, I'll make it available here. As far as it goes, some of Shawn's prints are available from my company. As far as it goes,
Absolutely.
I know it's a little bit sleazy and greasy, but shameless on that one. Go check that out and help support the artists there as well. So yeah, Shawn, Shawn and Matt actually. You guys want to do closing statements and play us off? So,
Sure. Who goes first?
If you want to go
yes.
first, that would be great.
All right. So the only thing I'll have to say is I appreciate you guys having me here. It's been a great conversation, great fun. And anybody out there listening, if you want to get into something creative, jump right in. Don't be scared. start small and build up. You're always going to learn something, and it's never going to stop. Just keep going forward, and you'll see progression.
Yeah. So,
And I would say that if you have a skill that you are really passionate about, there is no more enjoyable way to demonstrate it than to share it with somebody else. That is, in my experience, the most fun that you can have with any kind of skill. And I would remind everybody to stay safe and be excellent to each other.
yeah.
Be excellent.
Yeah. One last thing for the people at home as we sign off here. If you would like to catch me and possibly Matt, possibly, we don't know for sure yet, you can turn over to twitch.tv/Syn Shop to catch Pong, Crux, and at least myself over there on their Twitch channel for their after show podcast. But remember, they go live, at 11:30 because they're going live now for the main show. But at 11:30, I think they'll be going, 11:30 they'll be going into the post show. So tune over to twitch.tv/Syn Shop to catch us over there tonight. So I thank you so much,
11:30
Shawn.
Eastern.
Yeah, 11:30 Eastern. Sorry about that. Thanks, Matt. Thank you so much, Shawn. Rob, again, such a fantastic job. And everyone, we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.
Yeah, we'll
Good night
do.
all.
Yeah. Play us off, Rob. Oh. So I think he stopped it. I don't know.
You let me know when we're clear, I guess.
Yeah, he'll let us know. He always lets us know. There we go. And close. We're good.
Yay. So yeah, I don't know why we never asked that question before.